In audio, as with most aspects of life, true bargains are really hard to find. Quite often, sales and special offers such as Amazon Prime Days are totally misleading. You can often find those products on sale for even lower prices on non-Prime days, some of them anyway. Now, the best place for finding bargains in audio are generally charity shops. You can pick up a handful of CDs for very little money. And another bargain, which I constantly recommend to audiophile newbies, is the HiFiMan Arya headphone. Now, for under £250, it is the absolute ideal introduction to the world of decent sound for anyone that wants to experience it for the first time. Now, I've used a pair of Sundaras for the past 5 years and I've absolutely loved them, but they are no more. They have been sold to someone else who I hope will get as much pleasure out of them as I did. And the reason is these. Enter the HiFiMan Arya. Now, these were initially sold for over £1,000, but now they're available for closer to £549 or dollars, depending on your region. In fact, having criticised the Amazon Prime Day sale, I picked these up on an Amazon Prime Day sale for just £479, which is an absolute steal. Now, what we have here is the third latest generation of the Arya. I think it's also called the Arya Stealth Magnet Edition. Anyway, at the time of making this video, HiFiMan also sells the Arya Organic, and this retails for just over £200 more than these ones. I haven't heard those, so this is very much all about the standard Arya V3 Stealth, whatever you'd like to call it. And honestly, even at the standard £549 price, I think these might be some of the best headphones you can buy right now. They're so good, they genuinely rival headphones costing significantly more, which I guess is the definition of a bargain. So let's dive in and see what makes a HiFiMan Arya so special. Now, normally I might start with talking about build quality, unboxing, all those boring YouTube kind of things. And we will get to those bits. I'm not going to sweep them under the carpet. But let's be real, the main reason you drop this kind of money on headphones is for their sound quality. And thankfully, the Arya absolutely delivers. Let's talk about sound signature frequency response first. So what we're talking about here is an excellently neutral presentation across the board. There is a touch of warmth in the bass, but it's not the overwhelming slam that you get from some closed backs. Instead, it's natural, tight, incredibly nuanced and fast. So if there are rapid sequences of bass notes, for example, on a track like Giorgio by Moroder off Daft Punk's Random Access Memories album, during those sections, the bass line is just exciting, quick, dexterous, and full of texture. It's just fantastic. The mid-range is spot on. Vocals and instruments sound very clear. Again, there's a slight warmth, especially in the lower mids, but it never gets muddy or congested. But perhaps the real star here is the treble. Those highs are crystal clear without being fatiguing or harsh. It kind of feels like HiFiMan boosted the lower and possibly the upper treble slightly, maybe recessing the mid treble just a touch. The result, plenty of sparkle and air without painful sibilance. But beyond the plain frequency response, let's talk technical performance. And the first thing that hits you, the soundstage. It is wide. Now, if you're coming from something excellent, but perhaps a bit more intimate, like the Sennheiser HD 650s over there, the Aryas are a revelation in what soundstage means. The only headphone that I've heard with a noticeably wider stage is the Sennheiser HD 800S. I think those things are well renowned for their sound stage, and rightly so. But remember, that's a much more expensive headphone than the Arya. For the money that you pay, the Arya soundstage is phenomenal. And to go with that, the imaging is brilliant. It's incredibly easy to pinpoint where every instrument and vocalist is placed within that really wide soundstage. So, for example, take End Song by The Cure. That was one of my favourite tracks off my favourite album of 2024. That track is layered with guitars, synths, powerful drums. In fact, there's no vocal on that track until more than halfway through. On cheap headphones, over-ear headphones or IEMs, that mix sounds dense and heavy with all the elements blending into one. However, on the Arias, everything has its own distinct space, and you can tell where every instrument is coming from. If you've never experienced high-end headphone imaging before, this will genuinely blow you away. Instrument separation is also top-notch. Each instrument sounds pretty natural, the timbre is excellent, and they never blend together muddily. Clarity is the key word here. Everything sounds so detailed, so clear. Now that detail does of course cut both ways. Great recordings sound sublime, revealing tiny nuances you might have missed on cheaper gear. But how is it with bad recordings? Well, with bad recordings, their flaws are laid bare too by the Arya. But honestly, that is quite a lot of the fun. Spotting little studio mistakes or chatter or recording artifacts makes you listen to your music collection in a whole new light, and it's quite fun. So come on, there must be some weaknesses. If I had to pick something, it's that the Arias aren't the most vocal-focused headphones. Because they treat everything so evenly, I've found that vocals can sometimes lack a little bit of warmth, presence, or bite. The vocals sometimes sound just a little bit sterile, or some people might describe it as sounding a little bit cold on certain tracks. Is it a deal breaker? Depends really. For me, absolutely not. But say you exclusively listen to vocal-centric music and want a very forward mid-range presentation, perhaps with the vocals kind of right up close and personal, well, maybe something like the HD 650 or the HD 560 might appeal more in that very specific regard. But then, of course, you are sacrificing the Aria's resolution, soundstage, and imaging. So, quick comparison point, are these a significant, and by that I mean a really audible and noticeable, not a placebo, upgrade from the HiFiMan Sandaras? Yep, 100%. It's rare to find true night and day differences in audio, but moving from the Sandara to the Arya feels like one of them. The step up, particularly with that technical performance, especially that soundstage and clarity, is really significant, and it's a reason why I'm keeping the Aryas and I've sold the Sandaras. So that's the sound. Let's just quickly cover the other boring stuff, because you kind of want to know, don't you? So build quality, it's okay. They feel reasonably well put together. HiFiMan has sometimes faced criticism for quality control issues compared to other brands, but both my Sandaras and these Aryas, so far anyway, I've had them for a few months, they feel perfectly fine and solid. They don't feel like absolute tanks like the HD 650s, but the Sandaras held up really well for 4 years, even the pads didn't wear out, and I expect the Aryas will too. I hope they will. In terms of their looks, the first things you notice visually are these huge, uniquely shaped ear cups. They are designed to follow the contour of the human ear, and they are proper circumaural headphones, which means that they completely enclose your ears without pressing on the cartilage. So comfy, honestly. Combine that with the open back design, and this means that your ears won't get hot and sweaty. And these are incredibly soft plush ear pads. Honestly, they're just so nice to wear. The comfort really is outstanding. The wide headband distributes the weight evenly across the top of your head, and there isn't too much clamp force, just enough to keep them sitting on your head comfortably. Now, I've worn these for 3 or 4 hours straight with zero comfort issues. I wouldn't recommend wearing them and walking around because, number one, you'll irritate everyone with your music because they're open-backed. And the second reason is because, you know, they are not the most secure on your head, and if you move around suddenly, you will displace them. They're definitely not, for example, workout headphones. I mean, wow, you'd really got to be confident to wear these out to the gym when you're exercising. So yeah, these are very much sitting in your comfy chair or office chair, doing work or reading, chilling, and just enjoying music. They're not really made for wearing out and about or when you're doing anything vigorous. The other thing to say that isn't so good is as is quite often the case with HiFiMan, the included cable isn't really the greatest. It's functional, it's a decent length fabric covered cable, but it is a bit stiff and, you know, coils up in a really weird way. The good news, the headphones use standard 3.5mm connectors, so it's very easy to swap out to any other cable. I've currently got an aftermarket balanced cable with a 4.4mm Pentacon connector on these. In the box, besides the headphones and the single cable, you don't get much else. No case, for example, which, to be honest, is fairly standard at this price point. They're quite easy to drive with a decent bit of amplification, so I would use mine out and about with something like the Quest Style M15i, or my new favourite Valve portable amp, the Muse Ultra M5. I did a video on that recently. I'm sure, hopefully you might have seen it. Great piece of kit, and you know, the Valve sound pairs really well with the Aryas because they've got that slightly spicy treble. So they are pretty easy to drive with that. I don't think they'd work so well just from using something like the Apple 3.5mm to Lightning adapter. I think they need a little bit more power with that, but honestly, we're not talking very high-end amplification here. A decent amount of amplification will see you through. So the verdict, the HiFiMan Arya at its current price of $549 is my new benchmark recommendation for mid-tier headphones. But honestly, calling them mid-tier just feels wrong. You are getting genuinely high-end sound quality and technical performance that punches way above its price tag. I mean, that £500 mark is certainly competitive, and there are headphones that cost a little bit less, like the HD 650s, which are great in different ways, and more expensive ones like the Meze 109 Pro, which also sound great. But honestly, I think the Arya holds its own against all of those. I absolutely love these, and it's been so much fun revisiting my favourite albums. It's almost like wiping years of grime off a window. You just suddenly see, stroke here, I'm really mixing my metaphors here, aren't I? You can just hear everything with a newfound level of clarity and space. Without a doubt, it's one of the best audio products that I've ever tested. And you know, I'm a mid-fi kind of guy. I tend not to go for the really expensive stuff. It's a clear top award winner from me. So absolutely brilliant work, HiFiMan, bringing these in at this price point. But what do you guys think? Have any of you got the Aryas, if not this version, one of the older versions? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments section as always. If you enjoyed the video, please do give it a thumbs up and do consider subscribing. We're closing in on 20k subscriptions, which is great. It's great to be back making some new videos, and I'll try and keep going with it. Thanks so much for watching, everyone, and I will see you in the next one.